Joining us is a businessman and former head of the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, who is no stranger to the Observer, Mr. Demi John Cruickshank. Pleasant good evening to you, sir.
Good afternoon,
Yeah,
and
I know you've had a long day. Prime
it's
Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the TTPS Tobago division must now benefit from added help from Trinidad. He said, so one of the sad things he said he learned during his meeting of the National Security Council, in which THA Chief Secretary was present, was that 90% of the TTPS force in Tobago is made up of Tobagonians. Very interesting, and we're seeing a lot putting out there. Why would that be sad? One of the things would be 90% force in the made up of Tobagonians. Mr. Cruickshank, what's weighing on that for me?
well, it's not really a bad thing, basically. Officers are placed at the women fancies of their seniors, and if it is that Tobago had a very, very low crime rate for a number of years. It's only in the recent few years you've seen a spike, especially in gang activities in Tobago. Tobago literally is a safe place. There's no doubt about that. We have a few nuisance in Tobago that popped up their head, and we have to deal with it and deal with it as hard and fast as we can, because we cannot allow any crime to run away with us in Tobago. So Tobago enjoyed for time of immemorial a very low crime rate. So officers went into the TTPS, they became officers of the TTPS, and you literally stayed home in Tobago. Now that you have a challenge on your hand, there are no recommendation by some of the set seniors in Tobago is that we want to mix up the officers in Tobago with officers from coming out of Trinidad, because it's a very small society. A police officer most likely will be a first cousin or second cousin to somebody who is doing crime in Tobago. And that is the fact. So you have to now look at the strength and look at how you can bring in people from Trinidad. But then you have to be careful, because you don't want the police officers from Trinidad coming into Tobago with a heavy hand and then destroy the fabric and society that is called Tobago. So you have to play a balancing role in terms of when you're calling for officers from Trinidad, because the officers from Trinidad will come to Tobago with an aggression and a different mindset. So you have to understand that the people of Tobago is not like that. And you have to, one, get rid of the criminal activities and elements in Tobago, and yet preserve Tobago as serene as it is right now.
And I agree with you, but you know, when you have a prime minister saying that the policing effort in Tobago is not as sharp as it should be, and I try to put things in the perspective as Tobago itself, and many people make these comments as though Tobago is just a place there. No, Tobago really and truly is our tourism cradle. Let's put it where it needs to be put. And when you talk about officers being sharp, the main thing that officers in Tobago should be dealing with is crimes against tourists. If it requires technology, give them the technology, whatever support they need. But it shouldn't be about gang warfare and who believes that Tobago is a safe haven. Legislation needs to be put in place that once you step across to Tobago, that nonsense will not be tolerated. It should be zero tolerance. Any safe haven that Tobago is, it should be for the tourist sector. People coming from all parts of the world and want to go to Tobago and enjoy it. And until then, there's some seriousness put to that. Maybe then I can say, well, okay. But as far as it goes, Mr. Cruickshank, I don't think that they are taking Tobago seriously for what it is and what it offers.
Well, the thing is, tourist, as you said, Tobago is primarily a tourist destination. And as we fight and as we build out the tourism product and try to expand the tourism product, because Tobago has the potential to be one of your number one destination in the Caribbean or even in the world where tourism, as long as it's managed properly and the government shows the interest that, hey, we are taking tourism serious in Tobago, and we want Tobago to be a serious foreign exchange earner for the national purse in Trinidad and Tobago. So yes, I can see that the government is talking that they have to preserve Tobago, but you also have to understand when you bring officers with that mindset, they also have to be told, coming from Trinidad, that is hardened criminals, a hardened mentality that they are faced with, accustomed to in Trinidad, that when you come to Tobago, you have to use a sort of soft diplomatic approach when you come into Tobago, because Tobago is not a Trinidad. We might be Trinidad and Tobago, but we are totally different in terms of culture. People in Tobago, as naive as we are, still leave our front door open and our windows open, and we don't have burglar proof, and we don't have the fence properties like you can see in Trinidad. So we have to preserve that, and we have to let criminals know that, hey, when you come in Tobago, all you're doing, you come to Tobago, you have fun, and go back to where you come from. But the minute you start to think that you can do illegal activities in Tobago, the penalty should be 10 times as severe as you will find anywhere else in the country.
Yeah,
and that has to be, and that has to be put.
I agree. I think it's time. I mean, people treat you the way they see you. And if you can't see Tobago as being very serious when it comes to, having the viability to stand on its own and what have, people talk all kinds of stuff. Tobago does not. Tobago has that. And you're right. It could be one of the main destinations for tourism in the region. And I agree with you. But you have to send that message. Zero tolerance. Once you come here, we are not going to tolerate it. You are going to be slapped with serious fines, serious penalties, and of course, imprisonment. So people need to understand that. Now, when you look at it, the data shows that in the last 2 years or so, the TTPS has been struggling to keep up with the increased crime levels in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, is it taking some of the officers here and sending them to Tobago? Is that going to somewhat bring about fatigue and exhaustion? I mean, having to deal with that could lead to a negative impact?
Well, that also is a concern, because when you strip the officers from Trinidad, you already have a major problem in Trinidad. And when you take, unless you are pumping out new officers faster than the rate that is going on now, and those officers also have to be trained and have the expertise. And we don't want to see a drain on the specialized officers in Trinidad to deal with Trinidad's problem, because Tobago. So what you have to do is, I heard in the press conference today, where the chief secretary indicated that the Tobago officers and the heads of the different sections in Tobago indicated to the security council that they needed certain hardware and they needed certain equipment to police Tobago better, and the cabinet and the security council has agreed to provide the TTPS, the Tobago division, with those equipment. So we wait and see. I think that quadruple murder that happened, I know most of these guys. Tobago is a very close-knit society. It is not something we are accustomed to. 16 murders in 1 year is historical in Tobago. We have never had that in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. So Tobago is in a shock right now as to what is going on in the place. So these young fellas, and we have to send a message to them, and whoever it is doing this foolishness, that Tobago will not tolerate this. And we have to take a heavy stand and a hard approach as to how we deal with criminal activities on the island. We have to put up and say that we are not tolerating this at all in Tobago.
Yeah, and you basically say, 16 murders for the year, you haven't seen it. But in your opinion, what would you give reason for the increase in crime levels on the Sister?
Well, obviously, we're looking at is gang-related. Gang-related has all sorts of components. If you have young people not working, sitting idly by, they will find foolish things to do. And that is what we have a concern from the business community, that construction is at a standstill basically in Tobago. So most of these fellas who would have gone on construction site, they work all day, they come home tired in the night, they drop asleep and they have to go work tomorrow morning again. They are actually on the block liming and have nothing to do. So, according to old people in Tobago, the devil finds work for idle hands to do. So, we have to look at the economy in Tobago, what is happening to it, and then it can be linked to what is happening in terms of crime. Because if people coming into your space and then flashing money in front of you, flashing a good time, and say, come over here, we will take care of you, instead of the state arms not providing the service that they should, those young people is turning to that life. And we have to turn them away from that foolishness and say, listen, that is not Tobago, and that is not the lifestyle that we are accustomed to in Tobago.
Well, I mean, here you have the THS secretary. He presented a $3.9 billion budget. Of course, the biggest percentage parts of that budget was for healthcare, social programs, I guess basically to deal with those young people, as you spoke about, where the devil is finding work for them. I mean, but all in all, it seems to be more of a tit for tat, back and forth between that and central government and the THA, rather than getting down to delivering to the people of Tobago. I mean, do you think that time has now lapsed where, listen, this should have been settled a long time ago? All the kinks, all the bottlenecks, everything that was hindering delivery should have been already dealt with?
We are literally 3 years into the administration of the Fadi Augustine administration. They should have settled down by now. Within had 6 months or 9 months, they should have settled down. And they should have been working together hand in hand with central government and stop the politicking. Stop the politicking and the foolishness. Because people seeing you out there just literally fighting with the central government, nobody takes you seriously. And you have to understand that you have to sit down. We have an island to govern, and we have to look at strategically what you will get from the national budget. So presenting a 3.9, 3.5, 3.8 billion dollars budget, and to come back afterwards to say, well, oh gosh, we only got 2.2 or 2.5, which is what you know you will get at the end of the day. Let's be realistic. This is what you're going to get. And let us work with it, work with central government and say, listen, let us see how best we can develop this place called Tobago together. Because at the end of the day, I think everybody's interest is to have a better Tobago. But we are seeing crime is getting out of control. Things is spiraling. It's deteriorating. Things are falling apart in Tobago, basically, in terms of services that we are offering. What we need to do is forget about the politics. The time will come for that. Election will determine the politics. But in the time that you have to govern the island, sit down and govern the island and say, listen, these are the things that we can do, and the sixth schedule is out of our control. Let us deal with, or the fifth schedule is out of our control. Let us talk to central government. So it is not only when we have a crisis. The only time you see the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary speaking is when you have a crisis. You have the oil crisis, the oil spill, they talk. You have a murder situation in Tobago, they talk. This should be a press conference on a bi-monthly arrangement where both the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister sits down and say, listen, this is the plans for Tobago, this is what we're going to do, this is what the THA can do, and this is what the THA cannot do. And if you do not have that, nobody will take Tobago serious, or nobody will look at the investment part, and investment bring jobs on the island and a better livelihood to the island. So we have to understand that those are the things that has to be done.
Yeah, but all of that falls in the middle. Of course, you said there's a time to campaign. But the thing about it is that all of this is going to also be used as part of the narrative for campaigning. This wasn't delivered and that wasn't delivered. And of course, there's going to be rebuttals saying, listen, we had to take care of certain things. We had to clear up a lot of mess that was left behind. But in the meantime, what does that do for the development of Tobago? Bearing in mind that Tobago's population as a share of the national population has grown continuously from 4.58% in 2011 to 5.05% in 2022. So there is some growth as far as the population. and there will be more things that are needed to serve the people of Tobago. So, I mean, can we get away from the politics at all? Is it a matter of one side having trying to make the other side look bad, and the other side having to reply by saying we had to clean up your mess? And in the midst of all of that, we are faced with Tobago not making the kind of move it needs to make moving forward.
And my word to you is, who is suffering at the end of the day?
But the people.
The people. So that is what I'm saying. We cannot afford to only see the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary on TV, in any press conference, or sitting down in any room together, only when you have a crisis on the island. There is a clear line of communication needs to be developed. And let me tell you, two-man rat cannot live in a hole. Somebody had to be humble enough to say, "Here, I want to talk to you." And that is what is missing with the two leaders, the one that governs Trinidad and Tobago and the one that governs the island called Tobago. So I am hoping that they are listening and looking at this program tonight and understanding that, here what, if they do not sit down and talk together, the island goes nowhere. What is the plan for Tobago? Where we hope to see Tobago in the next 5 years? What is the strategic moves for Tobago? Who are we going to approach to develop Tobago in terms of the private sector? Who are the people we're going to look at, we're going to talk to, etc., etc.? Is it that the central government is talking on one hand, the THA is talking on one hand? At the end of the day, who is talking for the people of Tobago? And that is the concerning part about, and I'm concerned about, right? So I hope that coming out of a whole bad, which is four murders in one night, which I hope will never ever happen again in the history of Tobago. I'm hoping that the powers that is in office, both the Chief Secretary, which represents the Tobago House of Assembly, and the Prime Minister that represents the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, that they can have some more continuous discussion and put systems in place to cover and blanket the island called Tobago. Because we will not tolerate this foolishness on the island.
I can hear it in your voice, and I know you guys have reached a boiling point. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to link with us here this evening. And again, the best of luck to you and your entire team, and hopefully this thing works out. I mean, people are watching, and it doesn't look good.
Yes. No. Thank you, and
Thank
enjoy
you so
your
much.
night.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Thank